that what it? Someone sent me a message. Jay sent me a message. Sort of a rant. And I wanted to address the content, which essentially he was asking the question, is this community of truthers, is it just another show? Is it another is it another set of politics, basically? And he also brought up that something that's very common to everybody who bitches and moans about things, and our community is very full of that. Although again, I don't classify myself as belonging to a community, although you might categorize me somewhat in that general direction. But yeah, it is also a show as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm concerned, this whole realm is a show. I don't think there's a whole lot of you're just getting back into words and semantics. Is it a show? Is life real life? Is life a joke? Who knows? Who knows what it actually is? I don't really know. I do know the distinction for me, and it's a very important distinction as far as I'm concerned, is that there's good comedy and there's bad comedy. That's the main distinction. There's a nuanced way of presenting information or presenting your own personal viewpoint, and then there's obnoxious, blatant, I guess, allegiance to the hand that's feeding, sort of a thing, which to me is it's gross. It tastes bad in the mouth. In the mental mouth, as your mind sees it, it's just like, ugh. You know, it makes you feel a little nauseous. So that's the difference for me between the shows, you know, the show on TV, the regular TV, and you have to remember also the audience. The shows are made for specific audiences. The show on TV is made for an audience that has been sedated beyond all recognition, and that audience barely is even aware that they exist. So of course, someone who hasn't been sedated is going to look at that and be like, what the fuck? Or else fall asleep drooling, you know? So yeah, it's a difference of writing skill. That's something I said before as well, was that the only problem we have in this realm or in this world, the entire problem is bad writing. It's the whole problem. If you were to say there is a problem with politics or with wealth distribution or with the isms, it's bad writing. Now, of course, you put in selfishness, like ego self bullshit for those in command, and fear, which is the same thing, then, you know, you have the motivation for the bad writing. But it doesn't change the fact that it's really shitty writing. properly classify the act as a tragedy or a comedy. It's more like a travesty or something. A train wreck. how to intentionally create a show that's torture for the viewers to watch, and they still have to pay to watch it. It's like that episode of Rick and Morty where they were on the planet that was going through a purge, and they went to this guy's house and they needed to use the top of his lighthouse to send out the signal, right? And the guy's like, sure, fine, but one of you has to listen to the story I wrote. And so, Rick needs to go get the signal going, so Morty's like, I'll listen. And he sits there and listens to the guy's story, and he's trying to hold himself together and whatnot, just like in that the what are they called in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Vogons, I think, where they're like, this is the worst poetry known to the universe, and people might actually commit suicide while they're listening to it because it's so bad, and you're sitting there, you're forced to listen to this atrocious poetry. It's kind of like that. And there's also an element of power play in that, because those that are writing the bad poetry have other things to, they have power, they practice black magic or whatever they do to sort of get their little insignia imprinted inside of everybody's brain, however they get that entrainment going. So there's a bit of, it's like they know their poetry is horrible, but they also know that they're in power, so they can force everybody to listen to it. Like I remember in some of the states I've been shown or that I've been through, and I'm not in it. I'm not currently in that now. But as far as the ultimate that forcing can come to, this act of like forcing your own shit on some other being, and the way that the sort of signals that are being given to show this is the true self, this is my actual reaction, or I hate it, I hate this, or I don't want this, or trying to assert will, I guess, trying to assert your own will in the situation. It got to the point that I had to go through where that any thought that I had, any opposing view that tried to come up it was like controlled down to what seemed like the slightest nuance. Now that was of course before I went through the so-called program and saw the depths and the capacities of these beings or these technologies, and I went past that to where it's not at a level that can be recorded anymore, so it's impossible to control it. But the level that it was at before I got there, it was deep. You were not allowed to assert yourself in any way, shape, or form. There would always be whatever that entity is, or that thing that wishes to control everything. It really wishes to control everything. It doesn't want any individual will moving without its say-so. And when something becomes that power hungry, it also at the same time has the power to inflict upon the ones that it's controlling anything it wants to, or anything they want to. And it can be arbitrary, it can be just used for torture or something like that. But again, back to the original sort of premise, which is, are we, as the so-called awake ones, are we really behaving differently than the sort of mimicking in the truther community, as happens on CNN or Fox News and that community. But there is also there is a select group of people that know how to be mature and don't fall into name calling and throwing poop and all this other stuff. When somebody brings up the topic of how come nobody's doing anything, everything seems the same, this community seems to get divided and conquered from within, just like every other community, and what's the point even? I respond to that the same way, and that is that you, whoever's asking the question, you have to ask yourself, am I doing anything? Have I done anything? And if not, then why? These questions should only be directed directly to your own self. If they're directed outside, then you're still externalizing responsibility. Because if you can ask yourself that question, am I doing anything? Even with your own life, with your personal stuff, with your bank account, with your children, mother, father, your nuclear family, right? Ask yourself if you are doing anything with yourself. And if not, then you have nobody else to blame but yourself. Ask the questions that don't give you a scapegoat. And the way to ask questions that don't give you a scapegoat are to ask them about yourself. That's pretty much the way. Everyone's postponing looking at themselves. I've been saying this forever. Everyone's postponing. Everyone's terrified to look at their own baggage. Everybody. It's very comforting and cathartic to generalize. That's why people watch the news. When you sit there and listen to Trump say, make America great again, and build the wall, keep everyone safe, this and that, even if he's full of shit and it doesn't really mean anything, it feels good because he's saying nice things about us, so that feels good. And if he's talking about a group of people, even if he says Americans, he's generalizing and it has nothing to do with you. If he says Mexicans, he's generalizing and it has nothing to do with you. That's what politics is it's a cathartic spewing of generalizations that the audience identifies with. So pick your vast audience, 300 million people in what we call the United States, spew generalizations at them that make them feel good and make the ones on the other side of the borders kind of sound a little bit icky, if not just downright treacherous and mean and evil. And then you have the extension of the medication catharsis that comes with all the pharma and the TV and the religion and the opiates and everything. It's just an extension of that. That's what the news is. It's more opiates. Because generalizations mean you don't have to think about yourself. US, patriotism, Israelites, Jews, Mexicans, the wall. How much of that relates to yourself as a person and your own immediate surroundings? None of it, of course. So that's the work. If there's any work, it's to pull yourself out of that cathartic net of vague, somewhat soothing generalizations that gets thrown at you from everywhere, including the truther community. All you have to do is look at a piece of news and say, is this in any way, shape, or form relevant to my actual intimate personal life? Really? Like, is it really relevant? And if it's not, then just admit that you're doing mental masturbation and you're doing self-catharsis so you don't have to look at your actual individual, personal, intimate life. If you admit that that's what you're doing, then that's one step closer to actually taking responsibility. And I'm not, by the way, proclaiming that I'm some expert at doing this myself. I'm probably just as bad at it as everybody else. I go through ups and downs. Sometimes I want to look at it, sometimes I don't. But I am aware that that's the most important thing to be doing. Again, self-work. Paying very close attention to what your own self is doing. Being precise about how your attention's going, what you're absorbing in through your orifices, through your mental, through your physical, through your visual. Paying attention, paying close attention to your own life. And when you do that, you can pay close attention to other people's lives who manage to touch yours. And you're not just spewing rhetoric, empty rhetoric. Empty, cathartic, self-soothing rhetoric. And there's not a rush. There isn't a rush. The idea that there's a rush and that everything is ending is another thing to keep you in generalization. Seemingly that would be the opposite case, but it's not. Because when we hear that the world's ending, we're like, well, if the world is about to end, then that means I'm going to actually have to look at my shit at that point, but I certainly don't have to right now, so I'm going to sit around and wait. So they wait for the event. Oh my god. Wow. That was a full moon. Broad daylight on the sidewalk. Anyway. That was for Jay Reddy. And your message to me via Messenger. Maybe that was a bit ranty, I don't know. It's very nice outside. This is springtime. I'm enjoying the sun. What else? Is anything else going on? Yeah, work. Alright. See you later, people. Peace.